What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with BetUS, as you can see at the top of the screen. So make sure you click that pinned comment or the top link in the description, because on your first 3 deposits, you get a 125% deposit match. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring today's video. We'll hear from them a little bit later, and for the NFL season. Now, today, we are here with something a little bit different, man. I was trying to get a little bit creative in terms of what kind of next video I wanted to do, but honestly, I was just going to be basic and do an all-22 breakdown. I love doing those, and we probably will this week. That's the plan. But that being said, I didn't really have the time to do it today. I'm also at the studio right now, so I have an opportunity to record some content for you. And I was like, well, let's get some sort of content out. We're here. We might as well. And I also don't have the all-22 yet. So I could have done this with a condensed version, but I was like, nah, that's not fun. Let's make this video a little bit shorter. Let's be straight to the point, kind of like we were yesterday, but let's have the quality just look a little bit better. And we'll put together a top 5 list. Now, that being said, I do want to tell you that right now in the community tab, there is a link to my Bleacher Report stream today. It's 30 minutes long, roughly. And there is an expanded list similar to this of things that we learned from the game against the Chiefs. It's free. If you have the Bleacher Report, it's app already. It's very easy. If not, just download it. I do those usually weekly, and we do post-game shows over there too. So if you're not like looking at those, what are you doing, man? Just shout out the Bleacher Report. Go click the link. Go check it out. Or you know, after this video, whatever you want to do. But today, we're going to do a 5 key takeaways from the Lions-Chiefs game. And some of these, I think, in a way, are kind of built on last week, right? Some of these things are picking up based on last week. Some of them aren't. But either way, these are 5 key takeaways mainly from this last game. Now, you are noticing in the top right corner is a list of players who could sneak in the top 53. That is a real list. I just didn't feel like I'd covered up. I thought I'd just leave it up there so you could see a reminder here. Now, some of these we'll talk about, some of these we won't, but those are 5 guys that I think right now have played well enough to get themselves in consideration to, like, okay, there's a chance that they could make this 53-man roster. Now, Tom Kennedy, I don't think he's been great, but I just think where the receiver position has been at right now, and the fact that there's been like no separation beyond number 4, I do think that Tom Kennedy's absolutely in play. But the other guys, I think they put themselves in a place to potentially make the 53. Maybe more so unlikely for a guy like Jamarco Jones. We'll talk about him here in a second. Then a guy like Lawrence Strickland, who I actually predicted would make the 53-man roster before the preseason started. Let's get right into this list. Let's waste no more time. Let's start off at the very top with an honorable mention. That's right. Yeah, I wanted to just call it 5 because it sounds better, but this is a must. Lions kept Mahomes from the end zone. Now, I talked about this twice on Bleacher Report, but I also want to say it over here. All the talk was going to be about Patrick Mahomes behind the back pass. As soon as it happened, right, we were live, and it was like, oh, that's going to be everything. And then immediately, right before I went live on Bleacher Report, after the postgame show, I got an alert, and it was like, Mahomes behind his back. This dude's the best. It was something like that. It wasn't like that. But the point is, you knew that was going to be the storyline. It's all I heard about today. And it was great. It was a cool play. Like, I don't have an issue with them being hyped. It was pretty darn awesome, especially hearing that it wasn't necessarily by design. What should get attention is that the Lions' second unit defensively, for the most part, every player won't start that we're seeing out there. They shouldn't start, at least by week 1. Kept them from scoring a touchdown. And I do think there's something to be said about that. I think this Kansas City Chiefs offense, like a quick little side note, has some real concerns this year, similar to last year. I'm not the biggest Xavier Worthy guy, so there's that. Obviously, he's dynamic. He scored a touchdown on us on Amik Robertson, where we kind of playing the sticks, and he got by him. But then also Dorsey locked him up on a vertical shot play, and they also got the big corner route. I think that was Xavier Worthy on Kindle Vildor there. I'm just not the biggest Xavier Worthy guy, but I can understand why they took him for that offense. But I think there's concerns because they're going to live level 2, and Travis Kelce getting a little bit older. I'm just saying, as a side note. But I think to give the Lions credit, like the communication between the linebackers, the cornerbacks, the safeties, we saw Iffy match up with Kelce, and he did a good job. Jalen Reese-Maybin and Ben Neiman looked awesome together, playing off of each other. And it wasn't like that first team, like the beginning of the game, the defense front was like incredibly dominant. It didn't feel dominant, but it felt like they had some success. Isaac Ukwu and Josh Paschal, especially when Paschal was in the interior, he did some work, got 3 pressures in this game. The point is, the Lions defense did a really nice job. And the biggest standout, of course, is what they're doing in man coverage, because obviously there's a lot of schematic things that are missing in the preseason in terms of game planning for a specific opponent. But the flip side is what you also get to see in terms of just straight man coverage is that the Lions are handling business, and they're showing like, hey, we can do this. And we're just talking about the depth. We're not even talking about the starters. And in theory, the starters should be better than what we're seeing, which I believe they are. Terrion Arnold, Carlton Davis, still throw Meek into that mix, Enos Rakestraw Jr. Like, it should be better than that. And if it is, I feel really good about where that's at because the Lions want to make that the run game of the defense, something that they can rely on, they can hang their hat on. And I'm just watching games. Used as an example, the Green Bay Packers against Denver last night. And just quickly, I didn't watch the whole thing, but, you see Bo Nix completes a pass. He's doing his thing. And you see the high completion percentage. You see him just hitting zone holes. And it's like, yo, if you have good pass protection, you can do that. Denver has good pass protection. And we've seen that. We've seen that with Lions. Lions have good pass protection. They can get guys open. Most teams are playing zone a majority of the time now. You can find holes in zone coverage, and you can dice that up. And Jared Goff has done a really good job of that. But when you can play straight man coverage, you can throw teams off. You can throw teams off, but you can play straight man. Because now it's like, okay, am I running a pick play? If not, is this guy going to win? All right, I'm going to look there. Oh, he didn't win. Dang. So where's the leverage? Now you're trying to play a leverage game. It's not the same if there's going to be a hole in this zone coverage, right? Especially if we're just playing a spot we're not matching, then turning it kind of into man coverage. So the point is, man coverage can shake everything up. And the Lions right now, from what we've seen, the evidence that we have, they're going to be able to play man coverage. So with that, I just want to start there first. A little bit of hate on the Chiefs because, just because I don't know, petty a little bit. But also at the same time, I just knew I was going to hear all about it. It's like, dude, they didn't even score a touchdown. What are you talking? They didn't score a touchdown. I mean, I guess they've earned that right a little bit with the 2 Super Bowls, but I still want to see them prove they can beat us. That's where I'm at. All right, anyways, let's go to number, I don't know what number this is. It's just a number. Start here. Lions running back room is excellent. All that talk about Sione Vaki is, to me, honestly not a surprise. As you guys know, I'm a huge Sione Vaki guy. Vaki is going to be a very good player. He's going to be special. I know I've compared him to CMC, and I've sounded crazy. It's like, man, you're overdoing it. And I may have. There's no doubt. But at the same time, I think that this guy, I truly believe he's going to be the Amon-Ra St. Browns of day 3 picks. He's going to be that for running back for us. And you guys know I was a Vaki guy for a minute. Like, this isn't like, oh, man, I saw that game, and I was like, Vaki's going to be really good. Like, no, I'm not over-exaggerating off one play. I thought this because of Utah. That's why I have a Sione Vaki t-shirt. Shout out to my man Jordy. He bought me a Sione Vaki t-shirt, and I have one. And I wore it to training camp before any of this preseason stuff because I think this guy's going to be special. So I'm still leaving out there for anybody that's not on board. Feel free to get on board. But this last game, obviously, he then showed his pass-catching prowess, which was what I was super excited about outside of his contact balance, which he's already shown that he's an absolute truck to try to bring down once he gets out in space. He just has a feel second and third level to make guys miss, create big plays. But also as a pass catcher, he's legit. And I love the little angle route, which pushed it like inside the 10-yard line because he like shortened it instead of running into the zone. He felt it was zone. He just kind of cut it upfield immediately, made himself a target right away for Sudfeld, made a nice grab. He transitions fast. The explosive burst that he brings right out of the catch. Like, Sione Vaki's going to be legit. But that overshadows Craig Reynolds, who played well when he was in there. Pass protection looked good. He wasn't outstanding, but he had a really nice toss run where he broke a tackle, ran over a guy. I thought he had 2 good pass protection reps in there as well. And then we forget like the nice little flat route that he caught where he extended, made a nice little grab. Again, we've seen that from him. He's always had that background. Now, he's not like a separator. They're not going to like use him as that. I think Vaki can be a separator because he explodes so well and he's just so bursty that he's just sudden. He's just boom, boom, and it's like he's going to separate against backers. Don't think you get as much as that with a guy like Craig Reynolds for sure, but Craig has been reliable. And we know the same thing with Jamar. Jamar feels like a vet. He feels like a vet every time I see him. We didn't see him last week, but it's felt like that all through training camp. The most expansion I've seen in his passing game. But then I thought Bam Knight played much better than he did week 1. I thought Bam Knight did really well. Lions did a nice job utilizing the outside zone, getting the toss outside zone, get it to him faster, riding behind that right side of the offensive line, which really struggled to get movement at times, but behind Sorsdal, behind good tight end blocking, we found some movement there. All of our tight ends have been blocking pretty darn well, and they found movement with that scheme. It was very quick. It was one cut. He made things out of nothing. And then Jake Funk steps in, and he's not really in a spot to make the team just because of where the running back room is at. But Jake Funk, it's not like he's been poor. Like, Jake Funk's performed well. I thought he had a really good vision cut in this last game. He actually had the 3rd and 10 pickup on the drive that Vaki kind of put on his back where Sudfeld steps up, kind of flips it off to him, and he picks up the first down. Funk's looked good to me as well. Not perfect, but he's looked good. And especially like we've seen once in the 10-yard line, like the Lions were trying to just run the ball in. One issue that they've had is that depth offensive line is they're not getting much push whatsoever. Like, they're just not creating movement. So we don't get to see as many splash plays. But the thing that they are doing well is pass pro. That is what they're doing well. And I want to go here next because, to me, there's a reason I put Jamarco Jones, of course, on that top 5 list. I don't think it's likely. I think it's a long shot. But if you told me Jamarco Jones balled out next week and he made the team, would I be shocked? I don't want to say I'd be shocked because Jamarco Jones stepped in as a former draft pick, and in this last game, Jamarco Jones looked legit at left tackle. It wasn't perfect. There were times where early in his pass set, things got thrown off. I thought that was the problem when I had watched him initially. I thought he played guard for us. He still shows the ability to drop his weight. He can get in their pads. He can actually move guys. He could be a people mover. We saw that. I love the backside on the zone where he got up, and he created like the reach block, but also sealed it off. I loved that. Like, dude, that looks awesome. And he's not a great athletic mover, so we can get into problems early, but we also saw some of the really stoutness pass, short setting, got to lock guys out early, and just some of the strength that he has in the lower body there. So Jamarco Jones, who steps in above Giovanni Manu after a rough week 1, and he performed really well. He wasn't perfect, had a tough stretch, but he performed really well. But the biggest thing for me...
Vic here at BetUS.com. Get it all. Huge bonuses, great odds, a race book, live in-game betting, and a casino. BetUS, my online sports book and casino.
Was the biggest thing that I was watching for, which was, and we'll hopefully get more into this during the week, it was Colby Sorsdal and Giovanni Manu. 2 guys that improved so much in this last game. Guys were much better in pass protection. Now, I still don't feel great. Like, hey, if Manu had to step into a game, I'd be like, ooh, I'm pretty concerned about that. I don't know how well that's going to work, where you have a big-time pass rusher working against him, and he can kind of scheme for him, basically. I think there could be real problems there for Manu, because still some of the issues show up. I think as plays kind of drawn, he gets a little bit deeper into his pass sets. He can lose the inside. He can also lose the edge a little bit early on plays as well. He can be a little bit tall in certain spots, but he's definitely a good athlete, and he definitely has some of the recovery athleticism. We've seen Dan Skipper, who doesn't have a ton of that seemingly recovery athleticism, and he plays tall a lot, but he uses his hands so well that like he can win super early, and then if he doesn't win super early, things can become a problem, but he does everything he can. He just battles, so we've seen that, and I think he's going to make the team. But then also Colby, and the Lions literally, like we saw it, had the same thought I did after last game. Like, that was a disaster, so we're going to play you the entire game. Now, I wasn't thinking they play him the entire game, but without Galvin, it was like, let's just keep it simple. Dude, play 76 snaps for us. And Manu looked great at left tackle, so if you want an opportunity to get some reps here, Jones, go ahead of Giovanni Manu, right? Because he's going to make the team, I believe, unless he's on the list. He's going to make the team. But in terms of playing right now, we don't really trust him there. So go prove that you can play right now. And for Colby Sorsdal to play 76 snaps, that was a run blocker. He didn't show a lot of movement, which was a concern. But I thought he did well, as you saw some technique that was good. I didn't think he got up to the second level that well either, which was a little bit concerning, like we saw it on the screen, or even the toss play where he looked a little bit winded, to be honest with you. Maybe he was, conditioning-wise. But then also we got some good technique, sealing off the play side of outside zone runs. And then in pass pro, he was much better. He was much better. Like, there was a couple of handful of occasions where I thought he kind of lost, but I was like, dude, if I got that, I'd be perfectly fine with it for my backup tackle. I'd be perfectly fine with that. Massive step forward. And give a lot of credit for Colby, who played low in his stance, took big-time strides this week in this game. Also, real quick, want to give a shout to the interior offensive line as well, because now for the second straight week, I know we talked about it last week, second straight week, the interior offensive line's pass pro has been legit. Run blocking, not great. KO'd get some movement. I thought Neese took a step back this week in terms of movement. He was okay, though, but he could pull and do those things. And Kingsley's a good athlete. He gets up to the second level well and can get under pads. Brian Hudson had a couple little nice plays here when he got to like the third string, but beyond that, like, we don't get a lot of movement with that unit. I honestly probably prefer to just have better pass protectors, because that whole unit should not be out there at once anyway. If anything, it should be like, hey, 1 or 2 of these guys have to play, and then I'd prefer like, okay, my guys are good in pass pro, because it'd be really hard to hide an interior guy that can't pass protect. Don't create a lot of movement there. Once we get beyond guys like KO'd and Michael Neese and Kingsley, and you start to get to Brian Hudson, I thought Burton did a much better job this week, the UFL guard that we signed. I thought he did a much better job this week. Saw a guy like Clemens, who I loved this pass pro last week, like on the backside of his own plays, he literally just could not reach block. I mean, things were just getting behind the line of scrimmage constantly when they would try outside zone right. It was like they were trying to see, like, Sorsdal, are you going to move guys or not? And I don't think they did great there, but it was like they were putting those guys seemingly straight to the test. Like, let's just see if they're going to move people. Let's see if Jake Burton's going to go move people. Obviously, we have Mahogany coming back, so hopefully Mahogany helps us a ton there. And I think he will, because Mahogany can really do that. It's the flip side of the concerns are pass pro for him. But if he's anything like the other guys we've had there, I think we're in a really good spot. Next up, we have wide receiver help is needed. Enter with 4. Now, to me, right now, I kind of ordered how I think based on what I've seen. Now, this could change if I go back through it again, because the all-22 helps a ton here. Like, for example, I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is not out of this at all. Actually, to the point where I was not impressed with Peoples-Jones during the game. He had a little under route he caught, and they had a little speed out that they threw to him. Ended up the ball going high because of that. And then also you had the other play, which was kind of like the one-on-one, let's throw the back shoulder pass that had absolutely no chance of being caught. Like, you know, things are going to be contested with Donovan Peoples-Jones, but I definitely want to see more for sure. That being said, though, when watching it back and just watching him on routes, I thought he actually separated much more than I had initially thought. So he's not on this list, but I definitely think Peoples-Jones is absolutely still in this. But outside of Peoples-Jones, because to me, Peoples-Jones Fountain, I thought, looked better. He didn't, again, produce a ton, but he looked better. He had the little drag route, which wasn't great getting off the line. It was pretty slow, and he didn't separate a ton, but he did look better getting off the line of scrimmage just in general. So I think those two guys are just still battling. Like, they're both in play because they're kind of battling for the same role, but I don't think anybody's really separated themselves there. And I think Jones has a slight edge, but not by a ton. There's a reason that they flipped him. But Isaiah Williams to me is in. I think Isaiah Williams right now, if I was guessing, I'd say he's in. Still to me needs a ton of route polish, which was what I thought about coming out of Illinois. When he sinks and sits into his routes, it could be a little bit predictable. It takes way too many steps. Guys can sit on routes. You saw the out route that he dropped. Not only did he drop that, but he also didn't really have a sudden crisp cut outside, and the cornerback kind of just rode with him out there. I think at the top of the route, it just needs to be better. It needs to be made more disciplined, a little more shake, more creativity to it, more pacing to his routes as well. Feels like some things just happen way too fast. But he also does show so much separation upside where he can make crisp cuts, where he can, stab and cut and break and get off the line of scrimmage. At times, he could be a little bit overwhelmed with some physicality. Separate level 1 because he's very shifty. Even the route that went over his head by Sudfeld, that one, I think that was the one with the defensive tackle in his face. That one is like, that was shifty as heck. But then also every time the ball's in his hands, he's showing like, I'm good after the catch. I'm not elite, but I'm very good after the catch. He had the big punt return, which made up for a bad punt return. I thought overall, like Isaiah Williams, now the most productive receiver for back-to-back weeks, I think he's going to make the team. I think Isaiah Williams will make the team. But I think a bold prediction right now is that if you ask me, is it more likely that they keep 4 receivers or 5? I'd say it's more likely that they keep 4. If they add a new receiver, that obviously shakes things up. Wide receiver help is needed. That doesn't mean it has to come from the outside. I think it can be from the inside. Caden Davis, to me, I still think that he's one of our more polished route runners that we have. He had the big touchdown in this game. I think there was some good, but there's also still too much where I don't feel like he's getting open. There's some limitations truly in his route tree as well. But he made the nice little drag grab late, but he didn't separate a ton. And then also he had the one over the middle, which he got himself open. It's just that Sudfeld went late. Kingsley blew the block. So then when he tried to go back to it, he couldn't get back there. Isaiah Williams was covered up on the curl route. So overall, like Caden Davis still has the skill set. Don't think he's put it out there consistently enough to separate himself. Tom Kennedy has been Mr. Consistency, but keeping Tom Kennedy feels like right now would kind of be similar to like, okay, are you sure that's a good look? Like we're keeping Kennedy? Like when we kept him initially, it was because nobody showed up. But this many years later, like do you want that look of like, yeah, we're keeping Kennedy again, even though you know that there's real limitations within what we can ask of him. That being said, though, I feel like Kennedy's done a lot more after the catch this year. Obviously, he takes advantage of like every opportunity when the ball seemingly is thrown his way outside of the back of the end zone one, but he just wasn't big enough to go up and get it. But does know how to separate. And of that, he's still in play just because of where everybody else at. And I think Maurice Alexander is just interesting. The thing with Maurice is I don't think he has any shot to kind of fill into a returner role, so he just has to do it alone as a receiver. I think there's too many limitations to get him in. But that being said, I am interested in Maurice Alexander because there's like flash reps where it's like, oh, that was good. He separated there. I see Maurice Alexander. There was that. There's that. And then we saw in the second half, like a Hendon Hooker is there. We saw some breakdowns in coverage versus what they were doing schematically, where guys were just wide open crossing the field. We saw the play fake on the first one where the cornerback dove down, left Fountain wide open, which we missed over top. So Caden Davis could have had 3 receptions. Fountain could have had that big crossing route to add on to the little other things that he did. So I thought that was solid, but that was just wide open. You saw Maurice Alexander had a really nice dig route from the outside leverage corner, broke it over middle, nice contorting grab. Kennedy had the great contorting grab in traffic. The other big play, which was Isaiah Williams, where they kind of stacked the receivers. He ran underneath it. Cornerback couldn't help because of the coverage that they were in, so he just left him wide open, and Isaiah Williams made a big play. Like, those aren't plays that are like, wow, look at that. Our receiver's really good, but it's also, the flip side is, they're taking advantage of the opportunity, so I can't be mad at it necessarily. But receiver help is needed. Whether that's someone needs to emerge and be like, hey, I'm that dude week 3, like it feels like we need that, or that's the flip side of we got to go add somebody. And I think the Lions, that's on their radar. I do think it's very much so on their radar. There's not really anybody seemingly out there right now as the time of recording this, but eventually there could be, whether that's through the trade market, which, I don't think Lions are going to trade for somebody that's not performing in the preseason. That would surprise me a little bit. That doesn't seem like something that they would do. They could trade for somebody, though. If it's a team like Houston, maybe they let go of Robert Woods. I think he'd be perfect fit for the Lions. Something like that, size, I think he'd be a beautiful fit. I really hope that happens. But something like that, Cincinnati's deep at receiver, something like that could absolutely happen. I think that's very much so in play. And I think right now it's very possible Lions say, you know what, we're just going to keep these 4. We're not going to keep somebody extra just because we think we need another receiver. And we'll go find somebody. We'll see if we can get one of you back on the practice squad or a couple of you that we like, put you on the practice squad, and we'll go find somebody else. We'll make a trade or we'll sign somebody, and we'll roll with that. After the Antoine Green situation, we're not going to just force a receiver to be here. And I think that's okay. Maybe we go heavier at offensive line than coming into the 53 and then see if someone hits a list. And finally, linebacker depth will be reliable. Now, I do want to say before we get to this completely is another thing that I did have listed here, which was Hendon Hooker as our backup quarterback. I didn't feel like it was necessary to put that on here. I think that's clear. It's also something that if you told me during the offseason, like, hey, after week 2, you're going to say Hooker's the backup quarterback, I wouldn't have been like, yes, that's awesome. Like, I'd be like, yeah, that's expected, right? Like, he should be. I'm a big Hendon Hooker fan. Of course he's going to be that. But he is. Like, to me, Hendon Hooker right now is the backup quarterback, and that's good because we could come in with only 2 quarterbacks and not have to keep a third right now. And I think that's where we're at because he's shown awareness. He's shown feel for blitzers. I don't think he's been perfect perfect. I think there's times he's gotten off routes that he maybe should have, thrown. I think hasn't been always looking in the right direction for the right read, but some of that could be just a straight progression. And I think there's times where maybe he hasn't put the ball out there when it's like, that one could potentially be a reception, but you just didn't trust it enough. You didn't like the separation enough, so you just didn't throw it, and you waited for something a little bit easier, or you just took off. I think there's things that maybe he's left out there, but he's been, after the missed throw at the beginning, he's shown good accuracy. He's shown willingness to let the ball rip when he trusts it, when he believes in it. He's shown awareness in terms of he's reading the back end, he's reading the safeties, and he's playing off of that. And he has a great feel for the RPO looks, the zone reads outside of the fumble, and reading blitzers. He's quick to be like, okay, there's an extra rusher. Let me get the ball out here, right? Oh, he's coming off the edge. That play to Tom Kennedy at the end, I give a lot of credit to Hooker because Hooker saw it quickly. He saw the blitz, and he's like, give me that back. I'm hitting Tom Kennedy. It's the first down. We got set up for a field goal because of that. He's done those things well. He's shown with a lot of poise. And to me, Hendon Hooker, you can have your backup do that. You can have him a little bit more like, I'm not going to put the ball in traffic than I am going to put the ball in traffic.
A couple of the reads that I like from Hooker in this game. Now, Lions were using the vertical slot push really well. Here, Kansas City is going to go into their cover one looks where the linebacker is going to pass off vertical to the safety. They're going to get leverage with Alexander on his dig. But notice, he's going to read the flat, backer takes it. Then he comes back middle of the field to hold the wrap backer and then get to the second level on the play. You love how his feet and his eyes are on the same page. Like a play like this, he's going to feel the pressure off the edge, but notice how when he releases his football in this Tampa 2 look, doesn't like the out, steps up, drops it off. But you see how his eyes and feet are on the same page, and the way that it comes out of his hand is consistent. It doesn't flutter out. It doesn't come sidearm. It comes out the right way when he trusts it. And on a play like this, as you can see the edge drop out, so he flips back quickly to the other side. Not sure if he's reading the safety because the safety does roll down. If you read that, you can get the sense that it's the same coverage and that this is going to be open because Kennedy's using a vertical push. Linebacker's not going to carry it, but then it breaks back inside. Regardless, though, he does pull this away from the backer, so there seems to be some awareness of this wrap backer that he's not just leading him directly into it. Regardless, though, at least he's seeing the edge drop, flips back to the other side, you see the blitz, and he attacks where they're blitzing from. You got to love that.
But because that was the Hooker trait back in college. Like, he was not going to throw the ball if he didn't love the leverage into traffic. If he didn't love, like, oh, the cornerback's here, but the receiver's here, but I'm just going to throw it anyway because it's one-on-one. Like, he didn't do that. He was like, I didn't like the leverage. I'm not going to it. That's who he was in college, and I can live with that. Weird balance, but I think also what's helped Hendon Hooker, and we have to give credit here, is what I said earlier. The backup and third-string offensive line has been legit in pass pro. Specifically, in this last game, that touchdown drive that he had where he took off and scrambled, not only did they essentially clear the lane for him to score, in the interior, they basically cleared the lane for him to take off and run. There was also the one where he pulled it down, he looked into the flat, went 1-2, and then he stepped up and he took off, which was another clear lane by the interior offensive line. The one sack that he took by Manu, I thought, okay, maybe if he would have got the ball up, maybe thrown the flat or getting back to Maurice Alexander. Instead, he kind of like hesitated, wasn't sure if he wanted to take off. Then Manu lost his guy late inside, gave up the sack. But that touchdown drive, it was outstanding pass protection like every single play. I mean, we had time like we did not have at any other point in the game. So it matters what's going on around the quarterback. It just does. It always has. It always will. It always will. All right? We can't make everything about the quarterback, and I want to make that statement clear. But when I say that, I don't want it to sound like, well, you don't like Hooker then. Like, no, Hooker's that dude, all right? There's a reason I wanted to take him round one when he was coming out, and I love the fact that we got him. And I love Jared Goff, and I think he's our guy. I just like Hendon Hooker a ton. That being said, though, it matters what's going wrong around the quarterback. You put disaster around the quarterback, you're going to get disaster results more often than not. That being said, he has some ability that can escape those things, but more often than not, you're going to have bad results. It's why you can't trust guys under pressure. I'd rant, because guys like Mahomes at times have had awful statistics similar to Jared Goff under pressure. It's like, well, Mahomes is create, but it's not consistent year to year. Too many variables that go into pressure on the quarterback. Too many things get out of whack as soon as there's pressure. So because of that, when there's great pass pro and he's comfy back there, you had really good results. And credit to Hooker because he's taking advantage of those. And there are times when I feel like Nate Sudfeld on the flip side, like Nate Sudfeld did some good. There are other times when I feel like not looking in the right place, missing a pass because maybe he's not following through it, or, you know, he's kind of hesitating because he feels the pressure. And he's like, I don't know if I want to throw it. And then he throws it weird and it's like late. He has some weird balls that have gotten thrown, right? I didn't think his decision making was necessarily poor. I just thought he threw some really he's thrown some bad balls each game now. But Hendon Hooker's our backup quarterback, and I'm very happy about that because now we have two good quarterbacks, and that's never a problem. Finally, then, linebacker depth will be reliable. Yes, this is something I've talked about before, but to me, this is beyond just the 53-man roster. This is also on The practice squad. Linebacker depth is reliable. If Ty Summers makes the practice squad, if, Bo plans on the practice squad, I'm feel good about those. But the big thing here stands out to me is I think the Lions have done a really nice job in the sense of they feel like they've really risen the floor of linebacker. The question isn't about the floor. It's kind of like with cornerback. It feels like this with D-line. I mean, we're not even seeing Aleem McNeil. We're not seeing Reader play. We're not seeing Pecco play. And you're like, this looks pretty good. We're not seeing Levi play. The depth is legit at a lot of positions defensively. They have done a terrific job at just, here's our core guys, and since our core guys got pushed up to the top, now the guys that they're signing are not core guys. They're not signing just depth pieces, and they are hitting on guys left and right in terms of depth, in my opinion. They are just nailing these. And specifically at linebacker, they've done a great job of they'll add a playmaker. Like, I feel like Derek Barnes, when he was first drafted, he's a playmaker. You had Bo Plan, who's a playmaker. You go at a guy like Malik Jefferson, he's a playmaker. But then you also add, and I'm not saying these guys aren't, high FBI players, because they are. But then you also have really cool, calm, and collected, smart players, because Summers can go. He's a great athlete, and he can blitz, and he's a will linebacker, those kind of things. But they're also really smart. They're composed. Ben Neiman, they're really smart guys, right? They just played under Jalen Reese-Maben, who's also a playmaking athlete too, but he's really smart as well, communicates well, right? They kind of, you can develop into those both things. But point is, the Lions linebacker depth is really good. About cornerback depth being the strongest going into training camp, I still think that's a real that you could make that case. Safety is now, I think, in that consideration with where that's gone with Brandon Joseph. Now, CJ Moore, not even sure he's going to make the team. With Lawrence Strickland, who I put on players who can sneak into 53. Back-to-back week now, he's looked really good. He finally got downhill, and he started making plays. And then on top of that, now he's showing he can play in the slot without having a slot corner. It's like Strickland could absolutely make this team, who I put on the initial 53. But linebacker depth has now entered that room of like, oh, the floor is really risen here. The floor is strong at linebacker. It's going to be hard to make this team. I think Ben Neiman's in a spot to do it. Jalen's going to make this team. But it's now also beyond that, like if any of these guys on the practice squad and I got to play, I'm going to feel really confident that these guys can play. And I do want to finish it off, though, with that top right in terms of players who could sneak into 53. Strickland, to me, had him on the initial 53. I think he's in a spot to do it because I think he'll also be awesome on special teams. But that guy is smart. He plays fast, and now he's showing flexibility. He's not a matchup piece. I think he get himself into trouble playing consistently in the slot. But I think that he's enough of a consistency playmaker, and you trust him in different spots where Lawrence Strickland could be kind of like that guy that you just keep around because he can play different positions. He's got a lot of tools in the toolbox. I think that could be Strickland. I think he's a smart player. I think he's also got that really good demeanor going downhill we saw in the TFL. And to me, I think, Strickland has lit guys up in the box. I think Strickland, I honestly, if I was betting right now, I'd put Strickland in my 53, and I put him in there initially. I think he's going to make it. Khalil Dorsey, I also think will make the 53. Great week 2 game against Kansas City. Took away Xavier Worthy on a deep shot. I love me some Dorsey, man. That guy is really good. Tom Kennedy, for the reasons I pointed out. Parker Hesse, because if you want to keep a fullback, I think he's proving he can legitimately play fullback. And then Jamarco Jones. This would be a long shot, but if he plays really well next week, maybe not the initial 53, but I think there's a real world which they could try to get him back on the practice squad and feel happy about that. So I'm going to leave it there. I think this is a good first 5 key takeaways. There's obviously a lot more takeaways that I have, but we'll save some of those for the All-22. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It's my first initial watch, so things could change. But until then, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Also, click that top link in the description. Shout out to BetUS for partnering with us for this NFL season and for today's video. And I'm out.